These are 5 tools from Festool that even a hater would love. Now, when you get started woodworking, as you start buying tools, you start getting a little Festool curious, and that's perfectly natural. There's 5 tools here that are absolutely amazing, and 2 here I would avoid. Let's go. Was it love at first sight, or should I walk by again? The first Festool tool I think you should invest in is their sanders. I have been a fan of their sanders for a very long time now, and I've used various different models here, and there's something that makes them special. Actually, a couple of somethings, and we're gonna go over that. But if you just wanna skip through the noise, there's one sander I think every woodworker should buy if you're gonna buy a Festool sander, and that is the Festool ETS EC 150/5 EQ. Why they have to make their numbers so long, I don't know. This is it. This is a 6-inch sander. It has a 5mm stroke on it, and what that's great for is woodworkers. Now, there is some that have a 3 on the top. You'll see this one has a 5. There's some that has a 3 on the top, and what that stands for is how big the stroke on the sander is, the orbital stroke as it goes around, as you see here. The 5mm stroke is best for woodworkers sanding wood. Now, the 3mm is best for those who are like sanding veneers and finishes and stuff like that. You don't want that aggressiveness on there. You just want a really fine sander. This is a 3mm stroke sander, this little ETS 125. This is an amazing sander. Costs you about $250. Like, they're pricey, but there's some things here that are worth paying for, in my opinion. Now, the 150 is a little bit more expensive, and then of course you have the big old Rotex. If you've never saw the Rotex in action, this thing is a regular sander, just like your regular random orbit sander. However, it has a gear-driven mode, and this will take off a ton of material. Think belt sander level material coming off of your products. It will remove a bunch of stuff. I don't necessarily recommend this for most woodworkers. There are some disagreements there on if you should get this or not. It's just a beast of a sander, and it's very hard to control, especially on that Rotex mode. If you're using it for that, it's just, I don't know, there's better options, and in my opinion, this 6-inch sander is it. And the reason I recommend the 6-inch sander is because you get about 40% more sanding surface versus a 5-inch sander. It doesn't seem like it just looking at the two, but you do get a lot more sanding surface there. And what that means is you're gonna be able to finish your sanding faster, and not a bunch of us like sanding. I also like this because it is ergonomic, fits in your hands extremely well. It's just well balanced too, so you're not dipping the sander around. And one of the main reasons you're looking into the Festool system is that you're going to get that absolute amazing dust collection, and that's one of the things that shine on these sanders. Really, really good dust collection. When you pair it with a dust extractor, there's very few out there that even compete with Festool on their dust extraction. And if you think about it, sanding is probably one of the most time-consuming jobs you do, so you're going to have this tool in your hand more than any other in the shop, and this is what makes these great. The vibration is low, so you're not getting that stingy feeling in your hand. You're getting that really good dust collection. Because you're doing this operation so long, you're creating so much dust, you want to get that inside the dust collector and not inside your lungs, and that's where I think most people don't realize the value of a good sander with a good dust collection is your health and safety. If you plan on woodworking for years and years to come, you want to remain safe, you want to protect your lungs as much as possible, and this is one of the great ways to do that. Now, all of these sanders are variable speed, so you can dial in the speed however you want. The vibration is very minimal on all of them. The Rotex will vibrate, I guess you would say, if you put it into Rotex mode or gear-driven mode. It's just a different feel. But it's not something I would want to do long-term. If I'm doing a lot of long-term sanding, it's going to be either the 125 or the 150. As you see here, when I'm sanding with it, especially even on MDF, that's a massive dust creator. If you've ever tried to work with this stuff, it creates a massive amount of fine dust. You can see here, I try to film against a dark background. You see nearly zero, if any, dust coming off of this while you're sanding. It's getting pulled all the way in through the dust collection holes, up into the dust collector, not in your lungs, and that's where this really does shine. Another great benefit of these sanders is the fact that they're interchangeable with the cords, the power cords, and the dust extraction hose. Again, inside that Festool system where you can just swap these out. I can go from the 125 to the 150 or to the Rotex or any combination in between depending on what I want to be sanding. So if I'm sanding something that I got maybe a 80 grit or 120 grit on the 150, then I drop down to the 220 or 320 on the even smaller 5-inch sander. You could do that if you wanted to, and literally all you have to do is disconnect connections, hoses, cords. I think this 150 6-inch sander, 5-inch stroke is the perfect sander for most woodworkers out there. I don't think you'd ever be disappointed with it. I think it's the first tool that you should buy if you're looking into Festool, honestly. Now, all of these tools, something that's kind of unique with Festool. There's a couple other companies that do it, but you do get these sustainers with these to be able to store your tools in, to keep them safe, stack them up in your shop, in your tool truck, whatever you want. And I like the fact that all of these do have the inserts on there to basically tell you the accessories and things you can get along with this, with the part numbers, which is always handy to have. But more on those sustainers later. One interesting thing on sanders is a lot of us start out with the big box store sanders, and I've used those for years. The DeWalt, I think, is probably the best under $100. I did a whole video on that. But when you get a higher end sander like this Festool, or if you look at Mirka, or even Surf Prep, or those type high-end sanders, you notice a massive difference immediately in the quality of your sanding. No more pigtails or anything like that, swirl marks, no more stinging hands, and the dust collection is far superior. And when I hear from woodworkers who buy these and then reach out and say, hey, I bought that sander, that Festool that you were talking about, night and day difference. That's the response I get every time. It's a massive difference, and they're really shocked at how much difference they make. And you can only know that once you get your hands on them, and it's hard to relate that over a video. And it really doesn't matter if you go with Festool or Mirka or Surf Prep or any of the other higher end brands. It's just when you step up into that class of sanders, they're just different. If you're interested in any of these tools you see today, check the links in the description and the pinned comment to help you find them easier. Is your name Google? Because I've been searching for you. Next on the list, I think, is the dust extractor. I think this is the next tool after the sander. If you can afford the combo, dust extractor, sander combo, just do that. I think these are really, really great machines to have. I have seen a massive difference in the fine dust in the shop, and this does work with various other tools. I've used it with not just Festool, but Makita, as well as Milwaukee, and some other tools that just work well with this, like track saws, routers, that sort of thing. This is great for small tool dust collection because it does have the HEPA filtration inside, which is going to filter out that very fine dust, which is very harmful to us. And I did get this with the Bluetooth option, so there's a Bluetooth button on the end that I can activate the dust extractor when I get ready to use the tool. So for instance, if I want to just clean the shop, I can use this as a regular vacuum cleaner and clean up loose dust. I can also use it with other brand tools that even if I don't plug it into the auto activating switch, I can just power this on while I'm using it with a Milwaukee track saw, for instance. I do that quite often, and I do like having that Bluetooth feature. Now this dust extractor is a CT48. I actually recommend the 36 for most people because it's big enough that it will collect your small tool dust for a long time without having to change out those bags, and it's not overly big. The 48 is a good size. If you need one bigger, it's a good size, but I do prefer the 36, which I have under the miter saw. Another great thing about this dust extractor, it is very sucky. You can see here I was able to stick to this piece of MDF, the sander is off, and just pick the piece up. It does have an adjustment on the machine, so you can dial that down a little bit if you don't need that much suction, or if you need more, you can hit it all the way to the max. You can turn this on manually right here at the dust extractor, or put it on auto, which operates this plug-in switch. This is where I leave it all the time. And because Festool always works with itself, that's one of their selling points, you can stack sustainers on top of this for extra storage. I also like that they do have like a storage area up top, so I can reel the hose in there or lay my sander in there, and it's always right there. And I do keep this tucked under my workbench because I did build the workbench kind of around this idea so that I could stow this under there and it wouldn't never be in my way. It's always tucked out of the way, and I can just pull the sander out and use it, and the dust extractor, again, doesn't take up floor space. And there are plans available for this workbench. If you're interested, I'll link in the description below. And another great thing that a lot of people miss or don't really think about on these dust extractors, these are extremely durable, nice hoses, and they're anti-static, so you're not gonna get shocked or anything like that, and they just last forever. I've had this one on there for a few years now, and it's rubbed against the edge of the workbench thousands and thousands of times, against the edge of plywood and everything else. It's still holding up great. Like, these are lifetime tools. Oh, and these are on wheels, and they are very mobile. Just the way they roll around and stuff, they just move with ease, so they don't get tangled up or hung up very easily on these wheels. They're just kind of simple but well thought out. Before we get to the next one, I gotta give a huge shout out to Michael Boucher, who is in our Sawdust Startups community. And speaking of our communities, we have a Woodworker Jumpstart community that'll give you the blueprint of how I turn my passion for woodworking into an income. Or if you're more serious about woodworking and want to earn $2,000 to $5,000 a month with your woodworking, check out Sawdust Startups, both in the pinned comment and the description below. I know you must be tired because you've been making tracks in my mind all day long. Next, This is my favorite track saw, and I have reviewed a bunch of track saws on this channel over the last couple of years, and the Festool remains my top pick for a few reasons. Now, I've put it up against the Makita and the Milwaukee and some other rigid and other higher end brands that a lot of people really love, and I'm glad they love them. That's perfectly okay. You can love whatever tool you want. I like this one, and there's a few specific reasons I like it. Number one, anti-kickback, and as far as I know, this is the only track saw in this price range that has anti-kickback technology. On the back, you'll notice a little silver piece that sticks down. It kind of looks like a riving knife, but it's not. It's keeping track of where this saw is on the track, or not really on the track, but making sure it's making contact with your track. When it leaves that track and basically detects a kickback, it shuts the saw off and stops the blade. It has a braid blade on it, so it stops it fast. So it prevents injuries from kickbacks. And I just love having that feature on there. It's like having a saw stop with the saw stop technology. It's just a nice peace of mind safety feature that I love. But that's not the only thing I love about this saw. Number one, it just works well. It is powered by two 18-volt batteries. It's a cordless track saw. I prefer cordless track saws, even though it's connected to a dust hose. It's just one less cord to have to deal with, and I like it. Not only that, it cuts well. It has plenty of power. It's just a really great saw. Not getting a bunch of splintering or anything like that when you're cutting sheet goods, because you're on the track, because it does have that little drop-down splinter guard as well. And the most bestest feature on the whole saw, in my opinion, is the depth stop adjustment. Just works well. Some of them have the little single dial that you dial up and down. Makita has that. It works okay. And some of the cheaper brands like Win and things like that, they're just jinky. They don't work well. This, you literally just push it in, adjust it to where you want, and stop it. It does have on-track and off-track indicators, as well as a little fine-tuning knob right there on the top if you need to dial it in just so. And because, again, this does work in the Festool system. If you have an MFT table and you get the MFT track, this pops right on there. It's one of the best ways to break down material that I've found. I love that MFT table. I've been surprised at how much I like it. I briefly mentioned it in a video previously, but it's just a great tool to have in that system. How many times will I say system today?
Yeah, we doomed.
Another great thing about the track saw is because it uses the Festool track, it is compatible with other tracks like Makita and the Milwaukee track and several others that are in that universal style track like these. Not every track saw is like that. Hello, Ryobi, Rigid, and others. This does fit those, and what that means is my accessories work. So parallel guides, track saw squares, things that fit Makita tracks or whatever will fit this Festool track as well. And as far as accessories go to this track saw, the TSO guide rail square is by far the best track saw accessory that I've found. It just makes setup and cutting that much faster. I can literally take this sheet of plywood right here and cut it in 2-foot sections in probably 90 seconds using that, maybe even less. Another great feature on the track saw is the adjustability on the track to get it dialed in just right. There's two green knobs on either end. You just tighten those up a little bit and it adjusts any slop that you may have in that track, dials everything in super quick. The only thing I wish this track saw had that others have, like the Milwaukee, is anti-tip. So when you go to tip it over to 45 degrees, it doesn't have anything to hold it on the track. It will fall off the track if you don't hold it on there. And I think they missed an opportunity there. I'm not sure why they don't have that, especially if you're cutting bevels and things. It's just great to have. Milwaukee did a fantastic job. Milwaukee is my second pick, but barely under this one by like half a point. Like just, it's so close, but I do like the Festool. And before, I'm sure somebody's already commented because we're at number 3 already, but Festool's never given me a dime. They've also never given me a tool. They ain't paying me. And if we're giving credit where credit is due, check out the box it comes in. The Festool Sustainer. Again, I've got an opinion on this later, but this is a really great storage. Now, I think Milwaukee outdid them on their box as far as storing the saw itself. These are expensive pieces of equipment. I like the fact that we get a box to store it in, nice foam inserts to keep them nice and protected. If you transport these tools, you'll want that. Even in your shop, it's great to have it in basically a safe storage area so it doesn't get knocked off the bench or knocked off the work table or anything like that. And you know where it's at. You can look and say, oh, there's literally a picture on there. It tells you what's inside. So if you got several of these, but it sounds simple, but if you can just quickly at a glance say, okay, there's a track saw. I know it's in there. Also, my clamps are in there. I know where everything's at. It makes production way faster because efficiency is king. And if you can grab a tool and not spend 20 minutes looking for your pencil and the track saw, it just makes life easier. If you were a fruit, you'd be a pineapple. Get it? Pineapple. Next up is the Festool Kapex, my favorite miter saw that I've ever owned. I've used the DeWalt. I've reviewed several, including the Makita, which is about half the price of this. I think the Makita is a very good saw. Bosch is a very good high-end saw. If you're looking at high-end saws, look at those as well. As this one, I'm not trying to talk you into the Kapex, just give you my thoughts. First, the dust collection is probably the best that I've seen on any miter saw. However, it's not amazing like everybody tries to make it out to be on a Festool miter saw. It's just okay. But that is basically the drawback of a miter saw. They just create dust. But as far as collection goes, this does better than any that I've seen, especially when you're sliding and everything. The Makita was really good collapse, but when you started sliding the Makita, then the dust collection kind of reared its ugly head there. This does really good. Next, the adjustability of this saw is like no other that I've seen. It has a depth stop on there, a fine-tuned depth stop that you can literally dial in if you just want to do half laps or just cut grooves or anything. You can really dial in how deep you're cutting with this saw. Also, the sliding capability is all forward designed, so you get that space saving. That's why I'm able to get this up against the wall and save that footprint out here, not having to have a big miter station like I used to, way out, sticking another 2 feet out, because I needed those rails on the backside. This forward design is just much better for space saving. Also, as far as bevel control, I haven't seen any other miter saw like this. There's probably some out there, but you literally just turn the handle and you can just micro adjust this to bevel any degree you want between 0 and 47. It's just super smooth. I haven't seen any others that do this fine tuning. You usually have to like push the thing over and try to balance it while you lock it in. Kind of goofy, but this, ow, mash my finger. It will mash your finger if you're not careful. But this is probably the best as far as bevel cuts go. Miters, like every other miter saw on the market, you literally pull the handle and just put it whatever degree you want and lock it down. This does have a laser line on it too, but I don't use that as much because I can see it barely, but I'm red-green colorblind, or color deficient as they say, so I can barely see that line anyway. I can see it a little bit better than the Makita. I couldn't see it all. I would rather have a shadow line on there, but it works if you need that. It's actually showing both sides of the blade as well. So if you can see the laser on this video, then it'll work for you. This is a 10-inch saw, and I thought that I would miss my 12-inch saw that I had previously, the DeWalt, which I still own. I don't really miss that capacity. The only time I miss that capacity is on the sliding if I'm cutting sheet goods that are wider. And so like a piece of plywood that I've ripped down, it would be nice to have, but it's not something that I miss every day. This comes with a clamp that actually works on a miter saw, which is rarely seen other than I think the Skill I reviewed recently also has a similar style clamp, out of all people, Skill. It works well. Also, it does have a degree finder, which is super handy if you need that. It works well. It kind of looks like a Ghostbusters meter. And one accessory I'd recommend if you get this is pick up this cauliflower insert. It's just like an UHMW plastic that you cut. If you do bevel cuts, you have to replace this, or you can do one with a bevel and they slip in and out. You can interchange those. These are some of the best inserts that I've found. It won't break the bank. They're more expensive than some other inserts, but they work extremely well, and it's going on a Festool, so I'm sure they get to charge more for that. I'm not a photographer, but can I take a picture of me and you together? Before we get to the Festool tools that I really don't recommend, we got to talk about the most controversial tool on YouTube, most likely. It's the Festool Domino. And the reason it's controversial is because it costs a lot, and a lot of people say it's not worth it. Cost and worth are two totally different things. Cost is a fact, worth is an opinion, right? A lot of people don't think a Disney vacation is worth it, me included. And then there's others that think that's the greatest experience you can give a child. Everybody has their own opinion about everything, and Festool is no different. Now, why would you want a Festool Domino? I think this is made for specific people. First and foremost, speed and efficiency, like we were talking about with the sustainers, being efficient, being know where things are at. This makes very quick work of making mortise and tenon joinery, basically. If you're using dowel joinery or traditional mortise and tenon or any other type of joinery, this will beat it hands down every time because of the speed, efficiency, how quick everything is to set up. You can just dial this in. I've made tables with this, I've made tabletops with this. It's just great because you can do things at speed. And that's where I think a lot of people miss this. Because if you're a hobbyist or if you're not in production work, then you don't need this. You really don't. It's not a tool that you would need unless you just want it and you have the budget. Most people that buy this are in production, they're making things consistently turning out profits, so this will pay for itself in one job just based on the speed that's provided. Now, there's two models of the Domino here, the 500 and the 700. This is the 500. I think this is probably the best for most people. The 700 is meant for bigger, larger products, so in other words, it makes a bigger hole and you use bigger tenons, the little dowel things that go, the dominoes. You use the bigger of those. But there is an adapter that you can buy for this to make those, so I think this is the best for most people. One of the great things about this thing is it has 3 settings that allow you to basically adjust how wide your tenon or your mortise is going to be, and what that does is allow for a little bit of play. So if you're doing a glue up on a panel, you can do some with a little bit of play, so you can line everything up just right, forward and back, not up and down. And that's one of the key things about this. Whatever height you set and plunge to cut on one board, you can do exactly the same on the next board, and they line up perfectly at the top. It's just an alignment tool, kind of like a biscuit. And no, this is not the same as a biscuit joiner at all. A biscuit joiner is not strength, joinery. It's literally an alignment tool, and I'll get some argument on that, but come at me, bro. They're not the same.
Yeah, come at me, bro!
As far as dust collection goes on this, again, it's a Festool, so it's absolutely amazing. You literally don't have any dust left over once you plunge the hole that you're cutting. It's just really good, really good. The adjustments also very accurate, very precise on this. It's just one of those tools that, because it gets so much hate, a lot of people don't talk about it. But if you use this in production, this is one of those things that just will pay for itself very quickly. If you're a hobbyist and you don't need it, there's dowel joinery methods out there. The Jessam as well as the Dowel Max, both very good doweling jigs, can do the exact same thing this does for the most part, just at a slower pace. So those work well if you're not needing that time saving. And again, nice storage case. Keep it protected. Now, 2 tools from Festool that I personally won't buy. I won't buy them individually, and I don't recommend them personally. You do you. Festool's cordless tools, I'm not a fan of. Drills, things like that. I've never used one, so how can I say I'm not a fan of them? Well, it's just tool selection, right? Yes, I have the cordless Festool track saw, but as far as tool selection goes, in their cordless line, they're just not as robust as people like Ryobi, Milwaukee, DeWalt. Like you get tons and tons of options in those cordless tool platforms, where Festool is lacking in that area. You can get drills and a couple other things, and that's really about it. And from what I've seen in reviews and from firsthand knowledge from friends that own or bought and returned Festool cordless drills and things, they're just not that powerful. They just don't work that well. And so based on their experience and the fact that there's not a bunch in their lineup, I just avoid them. Another thing I will not buy individually, Festool sustainers. Now, why would I not buy them if I already own them? Well, the tools come in them. And I appreciate that they do come in them, and they're nice organized. They got the little display card on the top end. However, if I'm buying tool storage, I want robust tool storage. These feel like, and basically give me the impression that they're just thin plastic, because they are thin plastic. When you compare it to something like the Milwaukee Pack Out, like you see here, it's just better. It's just better. The plastic's thicker, or the way they've molded it, things like that, it gives it a more robust feel. And there's just so much more options available with something like the Pack Out, with the different size boxes and things that you can stack on here, or even a little rolling cart. I know Festool makes the rolling cart, but there's just different size options here that are just better suited for me in my shop. Now the Festools work okay, and I know they have a ton of different styles of sustainers, or Tanos who makes the sustainers for them. There's a lot of options out there, but I just feel like and believe that these are well made. So if I drop this off of the workbench or get it knocked off a tailgate, I don't think this is going to get damaged in any significant way. If I drop this off a tailgate onto pavement with a tool inside, I feel like it's going to crack. It's just different. Another great use for the sustainers is it helps me hold up the sign, Faith Valley Tools, back here. If you've never checked out our store, faithvalleytools.com, we got some awesome woodworking tools on there. It also holds up the virtual fist bump sign, which, by the way, if you checked out that next video right there, clicking the box gets you the big old virtual fist bump. Thank you for watching.